Two of our regular guests, both former pro athletes, by the way, Patrick McEnroe and John DeJarian. Hey, Patrick, are here in the studio.
There.
Hello, John. And it's interesting because we could talk about a lot this week. Usually talking to you about the financial markets. Talk to you about everything. And Charlie Kirk, I want to get this out of the way right away. Someone was telling me this earlier, that you guys were about to go into business.
We had a proposal. We had texts back and forth with his team about promoting some of the companies we work with that really liked his angle as far as, you know, the humanitarian side of what Charlie did and the outreach that he had with young men in particular, but college-age kids. And it was such a tragedy.
That's the story I wanted to talk a little bit more about, the influence, particularly with young men. And you know, it's a wider story that I'm sure something you would have some thoughts on, Patrick, but also just the influence of sports as well, because that is true, Mike, after 9/11. And who knows, maybe it helps a little bit this weekend, too.
I think it helps a lot. I mean, we obviously all need it at this point after what's gone on, you know, remembering 9/11, and I thought exactly of President Bush throwing out the pitch. I've been lucky or unlucky enough to throw out the first pitch at some ball games, and it didn't go that well. So that was
a moment.
It really was a moment, and it did bring people together. Music is the other thing that brings people together. Although there's a lot of musicians that make politics part of what they do now, which has gotten some of them in trouble. But overall, sports really is that's what it's about. You know, not only internationally traveling around the world, as I've been lucky enough to do in tennis, but in this country, and we certainly need for all of us to focus on some good old-fashioned NFL football and college too.
Yeah, I mean, let's have a little fun. Like somebody was saying, it was a White House chief of staff, go out and hug your family. I mean, sometimes those sound like, you know, cliches, but it's not a bad idea after this weekend. On the issue that, you know, you brought up, let's talk about it for a second. I think we all have kids that are kind of college age. So just with young people in general, you know, you have the suspect 22 years old, you have all the people who are there. You know, there's a lot going on in this country right now, but particularly with young men, who Charlie Kirk was very influential with, but young men are, you know, I guess, looking for direction. Do you have thoughts on that? What's going on?
Yeah, I have so many friends with, I have 2 daughters.
Okay.
But they, of course, date young men. So I know some.
They got to come see you, though. That's
that's right. They got to get past me and my wife. But seeing young men that are frustrated in many cases by having stuff shoved at them, they are looking for something else. And they found it with Charlie. And the size of those crowds that we saw this week, unfortunately, running, but the crowds that have gone to his events, it's an awful lot of young men that are looking for not necessarily anti-woke, but they don't want something shoved down their throat. They'd rather hear somebody debate even people that he disagreed with, and those were always his best debates.
I mean, I agree with a lot of that, and I think there's just something a little bit more to it. I mentioned this on the show last week, and I've heard other people talk about it, Patrick. I don't know, you know, people who came either from kind of our generation or older, or even, it was kind of this idea, kind of, especially as a man, you wouldn't have the hardest time in the world kind of outdoing your parents. You'd be optimistic, and that seems to not be the case with this generation. And you could talk about this from a financial angle, I think, a little bit of young men. I don't know what that has to do with what's going on, but I think it's something.
I think what has to do with a lot that's going on is social media, right? Because one of the reasons Charlie Kirk became so influential was because of that, to be able to touch so many lives. But he did go and speak to people directly. Now you have all of our kids, as you said, I have teenage daughters, you know, they know about this immediately when it happens. There's no hiding this type of information. So that's for better or worse for all of us.
And a lot of them saw the video.
Well, exactly. You know, even though it wasn't shown on a lot of the news networks, it's all over online. And that's, you know, FYI, that's where these kids get pretty much all their information these days. So it's managing that. It's a lot for young people to deal with. But again, we've got to we all have to find ways to just talk to each other and get together.
Yeah, the social media is a cancer, which the governor of Utah said earlier. I think a lot of people agree with. It's just like, it's there. It's like, what do you do differently? Do you have thoughts on that? Great, but I should have came to you on the financial side, because I think there's something there in that.
Probably.
You know, that there's not as much like optimism for better or worse.
I mean, they think AI is taking their jobs, and it will. They'll have to, I mean, look at all the people that went to coding schools over the past decade. Now, for the past decade, they did very well with that. Right now, I bet those coding schools are going like this because
it's harder on the entry
AI
level.
is taking over that part of the business and a lot of other jobs. So they're probably scared, maybe frustrated, and then they have, again, some of their professors probably pushing too hard on one side rather than going right down the middle.
It used to take decades, right, for the economy to change.
True.
Now it's changing
Very accurate,
in a couple of years, and so that's a lot. You're just going. Well, most of our kids are just going to college. They're trying to have fun. They're trying to figure out what they want to do, and things are changing very rapidly.
Yeah, I mean, do you think it's different for your daughters? I mean,
Definitely.
Do you think girls in general sometimes are a little bit more optimistic now than they were, and young men are not? I mean, or is that just being too?
I think
broad?
it's all of our jobs to try to keep them being optimistic, and that's not easy.
Absolutely.
In what we're seeing.
Well, yeah, we talked about it here today. I mean, we talked about like the idea that, like, as you said, mainstream media gets a bad rap, but you know, we could do a better job, right? And this idea that we don't have to focus on every nutcase on the internet all the time.
True.
And we could talk about like this guy Spencer Cox, the Utah governor. He made some great comments today. So let's play those. Let's talk about it. Let's be a little bit more optimistic. At least that was my thought coming into the show.
That's a great takeaway.
And we try to do it a little bit more of that because some people are doing the right thing. You know?
Oh, yeah. And
not everybody.
Just like we all know, there are so many good people in the world. It only takes a couple bad ones on either side, whether or not it's a political disagreement or whether it's sports teams. I mean, we'll talk about that. But you have disagreements over Thanksgiving about sports teams as well.
Yeah,
and,
like they could argue Patrick's NFL picks. That's when he comes out and his NFL picks.
They could be cashing checks based on Patrick's
Look at this real quick. We're going to do it on the tablet.
You should be impressed
what do you
with
see with this?
John.
So
Check
pop
this
this
out.
up on the tablet. Patrick's picks this season.
If you don't
4-0.
count college football,
You got them all right. We have like a minute, so give me.
I'm not sure I go. You know, usually I'm not sure I'm against
This
the spread.
is this week. You
That's
got less than a minute.
Well, I got Ravens over the over the Browns. Okay, 'cause
Gotcha.
the Ravens offense are going to explode.
You like that, John? Okay.
Browns
What about
defense was actually pretty good.
Steelers going to win that game?
Steelers
After
are
the
going
Jets?
to win that game.
Again,
the Jets
oh,
are going to
God.
get their tail handed to them
See you,
by
Buffalo.
those big bad Buffalo
I
Bills
agree.
and Josh Allen, who, if I were starting a quarterback just today, that would be my guy. No offense to Lamar and that guy Patrick Mahomes. Speaking of Mahomes, let's go to Philly on the road to Kansas City. We remember what happened in the Super Bowl. Blowout City. They're not going to be a blowout this time, but Kansas City wins.
Kansas City
By a touchdown.
Let's see if you're
No, Kansas, yes.
Kansas
no, I'm
City
going
wins.
Eagles. No,
Eagles.
I meant Eagles.
Oh, fly,
Eagles on the
fly.
road. Yeah.
Fly,
Eagles on
fly.
the road.
I'm with him now. I thought I was going to be against you.
Because I think the Chiefs are in trouble.
That's better than what we've been dealing with, right?
Yes.
Little
Football.
Thank you, guys. You're both great. All right.